So when you have a problem like this, you will solve it using the exact same process that you would solve any other equation using whole numbers. So I like to draw lines to keep myself organized. Then I'm going to first start with the constant on the same side as the x. So in this case, that would be the 8. It's on the same side as the x, and it's a constant. So I do the opposite. So if I have minus 8, I would do plus 8, and then on the same on the other side. So my minus 8, my plus 8 cancel out. I'm left with 1/3 x over here. And then on this side, 15 plus 8 is 23. So now I'm left with 1/3 x equals 23. So when I have 1/3, it's a number just like 5 or 7, any whole number is. So we use the same process to solve it. If I have a number right next to a variable, that means multiplication. So just like over here, if I have this problem, a whole number next to the x, that means I multiply them. So to cancel out the 5, I do the opposite, which is divide. And that would get me x equals 3. I do the same over here. I have a number times x. This number just happens to be a fraction, but like I said, same process. So a number times x, the opposite of times is divide, and I divide by whatever number I have. So the number I have is 1/3, so I divide by 1/3. I do the same over here. So my 1/3s cancel. I'm left with an x equals, so now I need to do 23 divided by 1/3, which I will write off to the side. So I need to make 23 a fraction, put it over 1, and then I do keep, change, flip. 23 times 3 is 69 over 1. So this equals 69, so x equals 69 is how I would solve that. Okay, so here's how we would do problems like this. X minus 12 divided by -2 equals 5. So in this problem, the entire numerator, the whole top of the fraction, is dividing by the bottom by -2. So all of this stays together. All of this together divides by -2. So this is like a group up here. So this is the same as if I put parentheses around it because it all stays together to divide by -2. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to try to cancel out this -2 because these are together up here. This -2 is totally alone. It's not part of any group. It's not with an x. It's just a -2. So I need to think, well, right now I'm doing divide by -2, so I think, what is the opposite of that? The opposite of division is multiplication, so I will do the opposite, multiply by -2, and I do the same on the other side. So now my divide by -2 times 2 cancel out. Canceled. And now all I have left on this side of the equal sign is x minus 12. And then over here, 5 times -2, positive times negative, negative. 5 times 2, 10. So now I have x minus 12 equals -10. So then finally, I have to try to get rid of this minus 12. So I do the opposite. I don't really have room on the page, so I'm going to try to squeeze it in down here. Plus 12, minus 12 plus 12, that cancels. -10 plus positive 12, that equals positive 2. So x equals 2 in this case. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do a problem like this. Sorry, I really need like a YouTuber stand or something because you can totally see my air freshener that I'm resting my phone on, but try to ignore that. I'll work on that for future content, but for now, this is what we have to work with. So, an example problem, -10 plus 5x equals 25. So how to do this one is, just like the others, I always start with my constant. And so I look at the same side as the x and see which one is by itself, which is this -10. So then I do the opposite, which right here, I'm not really doing any adding or subtracting here, but I look to see that it's a -10, so I do the opposite of that. So the opposite of -10 would be +10, which could translate to +10. On both sides of the equal sign. So then a -10 and a +10 cancel. So I'm left with plus 5x, which is basically just saying it's a positive 5x. So honestly, I really don't need the plus, because without it, I can still see that it's positive 5x. Then over here, 25 plus 10, 35. Then I will divide both sides by 5. The 5's cancel. I'm left with x equals 7. Okay, so here's another video. Once again, sorry, my air freshener is in the way. But the problem we're going to focus on is x divided by 4 plus 9 equals 16. So for problems like this, where the division is separate from the constant, we'll start off like normal, where we have a constant that we are adding. It's totally separate by itself, so that's what we'll start with by doing the opposite. So if I have plus 9, the opposite would be minus 9 on both sides of the equal sign. So then my plus 9 minus 9, that cancels. So I have x divided by 4 left. Then over here, 16 minus 9, that would be 7. Then now I have x divided by 4 equals 7. So once again, I need to do the opposite, and I look to see what I'm doing in my problem currently, which is division. I'm dividing by 4. So if I'm dividing by 4, I will do the opposite of that and then multiply by 4. So I will times 4 times 4. So my divide by 4, my times 4, they're exact opposites, so they cancel, and I'm left with just the x over here. Then I do 7 times 4 is 28. So then 28 would be my answer for what x equals. Okay, so get ready for another awesome video tutorial with, sorry, my air freshener in the way, ignore that. And what we are going to do in this one is 25 equals -10 minus 7x. So what I need to do is first look at the side of the equal sign that has the x, this one, and see which one is the constant, so the one without the x, the -10, and I'm going to do the opposite of that. So before the -10, I'm not really adding or subtracting anything, but I do have a negative sign, and so I'm going to do the opposite of that. So if it's negative, I will do the opposite, which is positive, which is essentially the same thing as plus 10, plus 10. If this were like this, 10 minus 7x, I would do the opposite of positive, negative, and I would do minus 10. But since it's negative, I do the opposite, positive. So then here, 25 plus 10 is 35. -10 plus 10 cancels, but I only cancel out the 10s. I still have left minus 7x, so I need to keep that minus there. And now I will try to get this x alone to see what it equals. So I will do, if I have times -7, I'll do the opposite, which is divide by -7. positive 35 divided by negative 7, positive divided by negative is negative. 35 divided by 7 is 5. So negative 5 equals, my negative 7's cancel, and I'm left with just the x. So my answer is negative 5 equals x. Okay, so I'm making another video. This problem is really similar to that problem, but I wanted to really clarify how they are just slightly different. So in this case, it's the same, 25 equals 10 minus 7x. The only difference is this is positive and this one is negative. So when it was a negative 10, we canceled it out by doing plus 10. So what we're going to do, same thing, sorry, let me get my air freshener into place here. We're going to do the same thing where we start on the side of the x and look at the constant, so the 10, and we do the opposite of it. So this minus 7x, this goes together here. This minus has nothing to do with the 10. So I'm just going to cover that up, and I'm going to look at the 10. And I look before it to see, is it positive or negative? And there's no sign, which tells me that it's positive. So I'm going to do the opposite of that. So the opposite of positive would be negative. So I'm going to do minus 10, so like a negative 10, or in this case, we think about it as a minus 10 on both sides of the equal sign. So then I have 25 minus 10 is 15. Positive 10 minus 10, that cancels. But only the 10's cancel. Remember, this minus goes with the 7x. So I didn't cancel out the minus, only the 10. So I'm still left with minus 7x. Now, what I'm going to need to do is get this x by itself. So I do the opposite. Here I'm doing negative 7 times x. So the opposite of times is divide. So I will divide by negative 7, divide by negative 7. The negative 7's cancel. I'm left with just an x. And then over here, I picked really bad numbers for an example problem because this is not an even answer, but it would be negative 15 sevenths would be the answer.